Hi everyone, today is Tuesday, September 18th, and I'm actually in my study right here, and don't mind the things in the background. I'm actually in a studio, so an office, just working on some things. But I just wanted to actually show you something about this thing called racial profile and how it is so wrong. It's very dehumanizing, and it's not the right way to make money off people's misfortunes. It's actually interesting to actually see how, for example, I'm just looking at this case right now, where even you see how debt capital is actually built off dehumanizing people. And in this case, this is a racial profiling situation, another one related to what is called medicalization or medicine. So I don't know what to call the title of this video, but debt finance, maybe debt financing or debt capital financing through racial profiling, a case study in Canada. Okay, so basically what the situation was that a person actually received a letter from the tax department of the government of Canada saying that they actually owe this outstanding debt. And this debt is, hold on a second, a couple $100, I think. $530. But for individuals that live in situations that are related to poverty, that's a lot of money. So we're trying to find out, how does a process actually encourage an infrastructure to say it's okay to build first of all, for a situation where the data has actually been falsified. So basically this case here received this letter from the government of Canada, and I'm just going to try and zoom in on the letter so that you can just see. But you actually get this, okay, it says, I can't really, okay, it says Government of Canada, but when you look at the actual way the letter is written, it doesn't even say who wrote the letter. So you know what you do is you write a letter right back to whoever this mystery thing is in, right here it says Sudbury, Ontario, and then it has a postcode of P3A5C1. Second, these are just some notes, sorry, that I just made on this piece of paper. But you know what? Make your notes as well. There's situations, for example, related to medicalization, where, for example, in the United States, it's a little bit of a different system. So I'd certainly like to hear your stories coming from the United States, because I want to see how things work, for example, in the Western infrastructure, like starting with maybe the NAFTA region first, and the data from, for example, Mexico, I haven't even seen yet, and I'm not sure how things work there yet with respect to racializing, for example, the black population, especially the marginalized black population. So basically this case here is one where a person visited another state. A state is also, think of it like a province. And in Canada it was another province, so it's another state. And they were actually visiting this place, and they were racially profiled by, for example, municipal peace officer services, so municipal police in that province. And what the police did was actually, the person had approached the police to ask them about resources for a situation related to a lot of violence. And what the police had done was they translated the situation to a problem with the person, What they should have done was they actually should have spoken with the person and said, okay, these are some of the options. You can certainly stay at a shelter. There's also emergency funding available so that you can apply for this stuff, so that you can actually get relocated back to your place of residence. They never did that, though. What they did was they collaborated with, for example, the ambulance services. The person didn't even know what was happening. They had asked the police force if they could actually go to the police station to talk to the police about options to help them deal with this a situation where they were in dire strait. And if the police couldn't help the person with that, then what they should have done was they should have said, okay, this is what we do. However, what we can do is we can actually suggest that you go to this resource, and maybe they may be able to help you through, for example, having a shelter available, etc. But they never did that. So this person was actually placed in a hospital. This person is black, female, also locked as well, locked hair. And these are very important details to know because, for example, the police will look at people like, for example, who have locked hair in certain places and think that they are carriers of, for example, drugs and pharmaceuticals and all these sorts of things unrelated to even the person's culture. So anyways, this letter was written, and it basically makes a citation to the Income Tax Act and a section of it that gives some entity permission to say that, this person owes in money based on falsified data. So I made a phone call today, and it's really pathetic actually to hear how people speak on the phone. They have no ability to actually exercise any self-reflexive technical to actually hear the position of the person. Like, for example, if you call different, let's say, corporate entities, and they have something called customer service, it's very, very good. What they also do is they will also hear your position and say, okay, you know what, we're actually going to cancel this because this is just wrong. And the same sort of corporate sensitivity needs to be applied in public infrastructure. And actually, the current government in Canada, like Canada has different levels of government, but the ones that are actually governing the whole country, they're very corporate oriented, but they're also oriented around balance. And this is actually a really good case study for them to actually also see the problem and the need to modify, for example, how these systems work. Like if somebody is calling to find out, well, what is all this stuff? Why is it that they have people who can actually be less than responsive on the phone? And in this particular situation, for example, Section 164.2 of the Income Tax Act was cited to say that that piece of policy, think of it as policy, so that piece of little sentence or this little tool thing, this piece of policy says that it's okay to actually go through the government and try and get in touch with this person to have them pay for expenses based on data that is not true and falsified. So this is what you do. Is you look at a letter like this and you actually process the emotions. It's very upsetting, very, very upsetting. But process the emotions, and you know what emotions, and also process the emotions. Like, decide in your way, okay, this is how I'm actually going to deal with this thing. Don't even go, here, there, or whatever to say, okay, I'm going to do it that way. You actually make a note of how you want to deal with this thing. My thing was like, you know what, this is very strange because I like to focus on sort of infrastructure stuff, right, and policy and legislation. And this one here, I was like, okay, you have like, person number one who, is explaining the process, how it works. Okay, that's fine, right? They're giving information to help you. The second person is like, okay, basically saying, well, you know, there's nothing that you can do, and you have to just pay up. And that's pretty offensive, especially saying that it's okay to pay for violence that actually has been imposed on the person. So if you get a letter like this or some kind of correspondence, first of all, like I had showed you, there's no like direct contact to say, okay, person by the name of this wrote this letter to explain this process, because you have to humanize the contact. So what you do is you just send it back to whatever this thing is, and say, you know what, I'd like to actually find out the process to actually repeal this policy and cancel this policy or amend this policy so that it actually works for people who have been victimized through racial profiling. So this video is actually called, I'm not sure what to call it. I'm not sure if I should actually put the direct income tax legislation, because there's different sort of tax doctrines around the world, and this video is actually global. So what I'll do is I'll just title this video Debt Capital Building Through Racial Profiling Violence, and maybe put like a subtitle or something that says Canadian Case Study Example. And I'm also trying to figure out like some kind of software where I can actually show you persons watching my videos and stuff and tuned into my channel, to actually show you like a sample of this stuff and put like arrows so that people can see and we can all work through these very, very serious policy issues collaboratively in a global sort of way. So again, don't be afraid to deal with this thing called racial profiling yourself, related to, there's so many different versions, but this particular version is so problematic. And what's really sad is that people actually think that it's okay to use this like medical language in a very violent way. And this is actually another piece of evidence to show that, for example, violence can actually be processed through something called paper data records. So give them back their culture, give them back their fucking whatever stuff they're trying to sell to us. And, let's sit down and say, you know what, we actually have to understand this paper harassment stuff, because, just the other day I was watching this video where this black male was actually punched in the face by a Caucasian person employed by the municipal version of police services in urban Ontario. And, it was really interesting to see how this Caucasian male punched this black male, and called for backup and totally falsified this entire situation. And looking at things like this, like there's persons like myself as well as others or whatever, that look at this and say, this is actually disgusting, because we're not about like photo opportunities and having our hands flailing and crying and marching and stuff. We have to actually look at we have to deal with paper stuff. And you can also become a paper whatever you want to call yourself, but to actually look at this paper stuff and say, what the fuck is this? Because, for example, that black male that was actually punched in the face, does he have a criminal record? No. And if he has a criminal record, how is he able to actually make his livelihood, take care of his family? So what happens? what are the options? To go underground, do all kinds of stuff, and then you start this cycle of violence. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're going to get into this shit, and we're going to actually reverse this whole cycle. So for example, that blackmail can actually come and become employed with us. For example, organizations, there's lots of us around, where we say, okay, you know what, we want people who have criminal records, we want people who have been racially profiled, we want people who are like high school dropouts, and we want you working for us because we understand social infrastructure violence. And as a matter of fact, we're actually going to value your contribution, let's say, to the organization, let's say around policy reviews and policy writing, maybe legislation reviews, legislation writing. We're actually going to start, with, I don't know, whatever is reasonable to the person. They might think, oh my God, I don't even know what my worth is. Well, okay, we're going to start you at, some kind of exponential amount. And then we can take it from there so that they're taken care of as well as ourselves. So, yeah, this racial profiling related to medicalization, this is just another piece related to how the paper stuff actually is constructed in a very falsified way. So, for example, you are placed in a situation that's not true, and you are sent these letters and connections are made to different entities. And don't be afraid of the government as well. Like, there's very good people in the government as well that will actually say, you know what, this is really wrong. And then there's people in the government that will actually threaten you and say, oh, well, if you, sort of correspond with us, then we're going to give you a criminal record. And so in that, what you do is you ask, for example, that governance representative to step down and criminalize them. And this is sort of the practice that's happening, for example, in, Canada. And, I'd certainly like to hear your thoughts about this racial profiling related to medicalization. This piece is about, some of the problems around the data records. And what was really interesting was when I made this call on behalf of, a case or whatever, this thing that was on the phone, this female thing that was, I think it was female. The male was okay, but this female thing, I don't even know what the fuck. But they were like, oh, well, you got to pay for this record, this record, this record. And I'm saying to myself, wow, this is very interesting because look at the way that they're actually accumulating, their source of income. So when you have like conversations like that, then it makes very, very strong arguments to say, okay, you know what? These infrastructures actually have to be given pink slips and they have to be dissolved. And, there's ways to do that. And there's discussions around that right now. So, thanks for watching, and I'd certainly love to hear your thoughts. And, again, like I said, I'm in my studio, and, thanks for watching. Have a good one.